Sorry. Sorry.
All right. Mgtow Chat. I got T.E.K. Kiwi on the line. Kiwi is a prominent Mgtow content creator. You've become somewhat popular recently. I saw your videos floating around on the internet, not necessarily in the manosphere. I want to congratulate you on some of your videos going viral. And I also want to thank you for joining me this evening.
Yeah, definitely, Nick. Thank you for having me. I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it.
100%, man. So I kind of just started following you. Again, it's only been about 2 months, and I really like some of your content creation. Tell me a little bit why you've chose the Mgtow lifestyle, what about it that you find interesting, and maybe we can talk a little bit about your personal history and things like that.
It chose me, to be quite honest with you. After my divorce, shit, when was that? That was like 2004 was when I went through my divorce. And I basically, as far as women were concerned, I just kind of steered clear of them. And in all sincerity, just focused on making sure that my daughter, believe it or not, had a father in her world, because the mother made my life absolutely miserable and did everything in her powers to put, I don't know how you could word it, put distance between my daughter and myself. But so I just basically focused on raising my kid, trying to be a father as much as possible. And then in 2013, because I kept on making the mistake of actually confiding in my ex-wife in regards to certain things or what was happening with my businesses and whatnot. And she would always end up using that shit against me. She was a raging feminist, absolutely raging Southern Californian feminist. So after 2013, I was like, you know what? I can't keep on being this freaking Muppet and confiding certain personal details, not just with my ex-wife, but with any female, to be quite honest with you. And it was very interesting. That happened April of 2013. And once I started to actually make that break, where I was like, you really can't trust them. They've always got something else going on. They've always got something else that's going on behind the scenes, and how they will take whatever you've told them and actually end up utilizing that against you in some way, shape, or form later on down the track to their own advantage. And so, yeah, I just completely made a step back and completely started focusing more and more and more on myself. And it wasn't just that, it was also just removing as much toxicity out of my life as I possibly could. So then I was just on YouTube looking at different content that was coming out, and I think it was Big John's stuff that I first originally saw. And I was like, you know what? I think I've got something that I can put out there in regards to this community, because I saw one side of the community that was a lot of information going on in regards to, just females, their nature, how they operate. I felt that part of the subject matter was absolutely saturated. So I've been trying to put out more content that's related to the deeper side of what it is to be a man, what it is to actually go your own way, what it is to actually make it in this incredibly feminized world. The reality is the world is incredibly feminized. It's unbelievable. Even men, in all sincerity, are just becoming more and more and more feminized as time goes on, especially in Western culture. So I've just been trying to put forth information to help some of the young guys, because I understand how people will gravitate to information, depending on where you are in your growth cycle as a human being. You will only gravitate to certain knowledge, certain wisdom, certain information. And then as you you know, as you could most probably attest, if you actually looked at where you are in your life now, and then you went back 10 years, you're a completely different person 10 years ago to what you are today. So the information that you're looking at today is completely different to the information that you were looking at 10 years ago. So I understand how that aspect of human growth works. So yeah,
it is quite interesting. I'm definitely not the same person I was 10 years ago. A lot has happened to me in my personal life 10 years ago, and also with how much the world's changed in the past 10 years. And it's very difficult for young people to find some type of get somewhat of a footing regarding a lot of the things that are happening. Go on.
Just to discover who they are as an individual, like for argument's sake, through my own personal experience and works. I mean, I've got the 33-degree Masons Bible. I've read that, rereading it again. I understand ancient esoteric knowledge intrinsically, and you know, we're all our own individual human being. Each and every one of us actually is uniquely individual. And the learning process for each and every human being is going to be different, even though we end up at the same place at the end of that path. What we have to experience, what we have to learn, et cetera, is all part of who we are as an individual. And, you know, today, more than anything, they've got certain individuals out there that are just trying to herd young men like nothing else on earth. And it absolutely, it blows my mind, because I've never seen or thought I'd see anything like it in this world. And I find it very interesting that as feminism has gone in its claws into society, and all feminism is just Marxism. That's it in a nutshell. I don't care what anybody says. I understand the roots of where feminism came from, and it came from men first and foremost, and it came from communist men. And those communist men were just trying to figure out a way to rebrand and resell communism. And they've done it through feminism. So feminism has or Marxism has gotten hold of this world. And at the same time, it's just turned a certain portion of the population into absolute pussies. And yeah, so now you've got young men that are lost. They can't find themselves. And then there's specific individuals. One of them happens to be a Canadian professor of psychology that's popped up, and they're just reherding all these young guys to turn them into just worker bees. And when you see how this is happening and who's behind it and why they're behind it, you know, there needs to be more information out there for these young guys to, at some point in their life, to be able to grasp onto. You know, it doesn't mean that they're going to get it today, but if they get it 20 years from now, then that's great. You know, I could be dead and gone, and there'll be, you know, hopefully still people out there watching what I've put out and going, holy shit, I get that now. You know, this is where I'm at. So yeah, it's the learning process is huge, and I get it. I understand it.
Well, I think a big part of the problem is a large segment of the male population have been raised in fatherless homes.
Yeah.
And not only that, and I know a little bit about my educational upbringing, I was told, and these ideas were reinforced in my head on how to treat and act around women, which was the total opposite. Now that I'm older, looking back, I was given the wrong framework on how to engage the opposite sex, and that's also part and parcel of the problem. So young men are getting these very radical ideas and views on what women are and what they're about. And a lot of it is wrong. And you're 100% right as far as the feminism origins coming out of Marxism/communism, and that's a whole other topic we can definitely get lost into in a moment. But what we're seeing is the powers that being, the ruling class, are weaponizing the worst aspects of femininity against men and against society as a whole. That's why we're getting this Karenocracy, as I like to call it. You look at the premiere of New Zealand, prime example of everything wrong in the West. And, you could see some of these governors and other world leaders really just being somewhat masochistic towards their own native population.
Yeah. New Zealand, honestly, I was horrified. That's the only way I can explain it. It just, words fail me in regards to what is happening down there, and it's a sad state for that society. And I didn't realize it until I was back down there. Talk about a wake-up call. Oh my God. I didn't, like, when New Zealand was originally founded, I could never understand, like, as a young guy down in New Zealand, the competition for any female down there was out of hand. And during the early years of the settlement of New Zealand, there was maybe 2 women for every 5 men. So when New Zealand was originally settled, and for a long time, well up into the 20s and the 30s, there was this huge disproportionate, what's the word I could use? It was just a huge
lopsided in demographics.
Yeah, thank you. Huge lopsided demographic in regards to males to females. So the competition just to get any sort of female was unbelievable. So what it's done is it's put woman, and the pedestal that women sit on in New Zealand is unfreaking real, and they wield so much power in that country now that by and large they're incredibly masculine females down there now. Because when you live in a country that has no known enemy, that's at the bottom of the world,
yep,
men can't be men anymore. They if they go to war, they don't know what the war's about. If they go to, if they have to defend the country in any way, shape, or form, it's thousands of miles away from where the country's at. So you have this protected population where men aren't allowed to be aggressive in any way, shape, or form anymore. Women don't embrace it in any way, shape, or form, but yet they can be aggressive. Woman can fight. Woman can. It's just amazing what.
Right, they join the armed services. They can be premiers now, and governors of certain provinces, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's just. It just made my skin crawl, Nick.
Well, when I was living in Southeast Asia, I did come across quite a few female Kiwis and a few Bogans, and they were American women basically on steroids as far as this femininity goes, treating the world as if it's their own personal living room, treating the world as a tourist, whether home or abroad, where they start inflicting their own cultural norms on the world at large. I remember this feminist NGO, they sat down with a bunch of Cambodian women and started playing the vagina monologue. And the Cambodian women walked out within the first 10 minutes saying like how grotesque and disgusting this is. And you saw like the white women try to corral and explain, no, this is good. This is women's liberation, and all these various nuances that they're kind of pontificating. Like, no, this is enlightening. This is better for you. And they were like, no, this is awful. It's quite amusing and quite telling when a Thai prostitute has no respect for a Western woman. It's like, no, I don't respect that. But at the same time, but you're selling your bodies and such, and there's obviously reasons why they do such a thing. But when they look at Western women with such disdain and contempt, what does that tell you about your civilization and your society?
Yeah, well, basically, it's like in their culture, that working woman, she knows her place. She knows what she's doing.
She
She's the
knows her
businesswoman.
age.
Yeah, she knows exactly who she is. She doesn't think that she's above or better or anything else. She knows
Right.
exactly where the F she's at. And the thing that actually be hold in more disdain is just how free the Western women are with their bodies, how they just throw themselves around like that and just do it. It's like, you're not doing this to make any money or anything. It's like, you're actually worse than all.
Right, exactly. 100%.
It's like, and the Western women don't get that. They're like, oh, well, I'm free on this. I'm like, no, actually, you're honestly, you're a pretty disgusting human being, to be honest with you.
Well, I remember tuk-tuk drivers just, giving their numbers to Western tourists. Their assumption was that these women are super loose and they'll bang anything. And I remember, my neighbor, she was from Wisconsin. She was quite upset that a guy, a Cambodian who could barely speak a word of English, let alone a tuk-tuk driver, thought she was just going to give herself up that easy. And that's obviously being reinforced by social media and, Hollywood movies and such.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's amazing that the Western female that is living out there, as she would be like disgusted by this guy doing that, but yet she still doesn't get the reasons why he would have done that. And
Exactly.
that's not understanding the culture.
So let me ask you now, digressing for a moment, you were talking about Marxism's origins Marxist or feminist origins rooted in Marxism and communism. Yeah. I've said on my live stream a few times that the wire hanger abortion comes from Ceausescu's Romania, where the Communist Party of Romania was promoting feminism, that women can be the mother and work a 9-to-5 job, and she's industrious and studious and she's good for society. And it led to a demographic implosion where they saw the birth rate plummet because of all these women working, and the men were kind of lazy, drunk, quite belligerent and brutish.
That's what you see in Western society, play out in Western society in many ways.
Yeah, and what had happened is that Ceausescu implemented this policy where women have to give birth to X amount of children within a certain amount of years, and that gave rise to abortions and led to a lot of women getting killed because they didn't have the access to these surgical procedures, and they wound up doing wire hanger abortions. And then once the Soviet Union fell, so did Romania, and it led to an orphanage crisis. And a lot of Western women that didn't have the ability to have children of their own went to Romania to these orphanages and started adopting children that weren't breastfed or nurtured by their mothers. They were kind of just left in their own filth in a corner of some derelict church. And these children wound up being psychopaths and committing murders and crimes in the United States and other parts of the other parts of Europe or whatever country, wherever these women came from to adopt them. And that was kind of alarming, learning quite a bit about, again, the feminist ideology and its amalgamation out of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union.
Yeah. No, in some respects, I actually lived it with my ex-wife because like my ex-wife, she was married twice. Okay, she's of Russian descent, Russian-German descent, and she had these. Like I said, she had these bizarre nuances about herself, but she had two girls, right? Two daughters. One to her first husband that she had when she was 18, and then her second daughter that she had to me when she was 38. Now, you want to talk about people being psychopaths, lunatics, and everything like that, these fatherless families, these people growing up without fathers. And I've never shared this with anybody. This is the first time I've ever shared this in any way, shape, or form. The eldest girl ended up being an absolutely raging drug abuser, banged herself through God knows what, been through rehab multiple times, arrested for possession of drugs, dealing drugs, narcotics, you name it. Was an absolute effing train wreck, and still is to this day. She's 41 years of age. The other girl, my daughter, because I've stayed in that kid's life, no matter how much the mother, like the first husband, he got ran off. I didn't realize that until well into the marriage. I wasn't ran off. It didn't matter what the mother tried to do, say, whatever. I stayed in my daughter's life. She's she's gone and done with college in Nashville, Tennessee. Absolutely smoked the entire college. She got some of the highest marks in all of her subjects. She's already employed. She's working for a huge digital marketing company. She was already employed before she even got done with college. She's doing incredibly well for herself. She's super conservative. She knows what the hell's up, and it's having somebody in that child's life. It wouldn't matter if it's a girl or a guy. The fact that the parent has been able to stay in that kid's life is what makes the world of difference in an adult's life. And this whole feminist movement, there was an article that I read in Time magazine also years ago. It wasn't Gloria Steinem. It was another bra-burning feminist from the 60s. And it was just a one-page article right at the back of Time magazine where she had 3 sons to 2 different men and ran the fathers off. And she was openly admitting to the fact that having no fathers, no male role models in those boys' lives, all 3 of them were worthless. And she goes, she honestly said, she goes, I've committed an atrocity against my sons for doing what I'm doing, or for what I've done. And it's just, there's proof after proof after proof about how the Western society and everything about it is just absolutely collapsing. Like you're just talking about what happened in Romania, because of these beliefs and these ideas and these policies that have been put in place.
Which collapsed, mind you.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're literally seeing it play out in our own societies. Like in New Zealand right now, I shit you not, New Zealand's got the highest male suicide rate of any Western country on the face of the earth. Men are killing themselves at record rates in New Zealand currently. And before all this other bullshit started around a certain virus and all these lockdowns and everything, we already had the highest suicide rate in a Western society down there. And now it's exploded. And they're not reporting on that.
No, I didn't even know that New Zealand had such a high suicide rate. I was always, to be honest, now, part of my ignorance, I know far more about Australia than I do New Zealand. I just under the assumption New Zealand had a really nice welfare state, relatively calm and pleasant. There's probably jobs to go around. Real estate is not as bad as Australia. I do know your premier put a check on China as far as them buying up property there. I'll give her credit on that, unlike my degenerate GDP government in the United States. But I'll say something again that my listeners have heard me say maybe close to a dozen times, is that living in the Anglosphere, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, America, or England, to various degrees, it's like living in a nursing home. It's a sterile environment, especially places like Sydney and Melbourne, and probably in was it Christchurch? So I could see there's no outlet for men, especially in Australia and New Zealand, where they can, be guys, because everything is well regulated. Everything's been, founded. There's no, your ambitions are kind of killed off at an early age, where you start going into these kind of these echo chambers, where nihilistic echo chambers, where everything is shit, everything sucks. You might as well off yourself.
Yeah, it's actually funny too that you bring that up about these nihilistic echo chambers, because the certain Canadian professor of psychology keeps on going on about these nihilistic echo chambers, and he doesn't realize he's the cult leader of one. It's just like, Jesus Christ.
I'll assume that this professor has got to be over 50. He's probably never really had some type of hardship, like most of these the caviar left, let us say, cosmopolitan elite.
He's just managed to recover from being addicted to one of the most serious narcotics that you could ever possibly take, but then turns around in the first podcast that he did with his daughter and blames the pharmaceutical company about, for all his ills and wrongs and everything that had happened to him. I'm just sitting there like, you effing narcissist.
Oh, what a hypocrite. I'm assuming we're talking about Jordan Peterson. We could talk shit about him on this channel. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's a very, FYI, we're a very un-PC channel.
Cool.
So we redistribute prejudices, whether it's Chinese people, Indian, white Americans. We let everyone have it on this channel. But yeah, I know who you're talking about, Jordan Peterson. And it's a bit of a hypocrite because he talks about being somewhat self-reliant and, manning up, sorting out your shit and cleaning up your room and so on and so forth.
When you've worked and suckled on the government tit for the majority of your life, it's like, he knows how to man up.
Well, he's a big disappointment from him. I really thought that he might be, going into politics. I mean, he was striking iron while it was hot.
Yeah, he's the last person you want. I can't remember the name of he's a globalist. What happened was he was an advisor to a Canadian billionaire CEO, and I can't remember the name of the guy or the company, but he genuinely was. And that CEO, that Canadian CEO, he was on the panel for the United Nations global economic sustainability. And it's just so ironic that Peterson, being a psychologist, working on this panel for global economic sustainability, suddenly just pops up out of nowhere, preaching to young men about getting your act together and like, to me, in all sincerity, he is the quintessential Pied Piper. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. Everything about you, when you read the Pied Piper story and then you look at what Peterson's doing, it's just like, dude, because he's not honest with people. He's not honest. He knows so much about so many subjects, and because he did it, as he said himself when he was working on that. As he says, he worked on that panel. He didn't work on that panel. He was an advisor to a major Canadian, and I'll send you the link so you can, because I do have it. And I've researched it, and he did work for this Canadian billionaire. But the reality of the situation is, he, out of 100% of the information he could be telling you, he's only telling you about 60. He won't go that extra distance. So, and here's a red flag. This one blew me away like nothing else on earth. He's just launched his first, while he's in rehab, recovering from one of the most gnarly narcotics that you could ever possibly be addicted to. He was in a self-induced coma for over a week to try to get him off the stuff. His brain would have been absolute mush. I've worked around Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous to help people through their addictions and stuff like that. You can't write a goddamn book about another 12 rules in regards to how you should be living, which is now 24 rules, I might add. You can't write a book like that while you're going through that. And he said straight up, while he was in rehab, he wrote that book. It's just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. It's unbelievable. So the reality of the situation is that he worked on this board for global economic sustainability, and all he is doing is putting out work to round these men up to just be good, solid worker minions. Now,
be disposable, working class zero.
Yeah. And he's studied all this esoteric stuff. He studied this stuff. He knows this stuff. He knows that each and every individual person on this planet is individual. They have their own given path in life. And I'm going to do a video on that stuff. It's mind-blowing. The reality of the situation, not every single human being is geared to be that worker minion. Not every person is geared to be, you know, whatever it is that these individuals are pushing them to be. That's why society is actually falling apart right now, primarily because of the fact that people are being told that you know, for the longest time it was the American dream, right? You got to have this, the white picket fence, the wife, the kid, the 2 cars, you name it. Well, all that's gone out the effing window. It's long gone, you know? So when you've got somebody that's worked on this panel, these individuals are looking down the pipeline going, oh, we're screwed. Okay. And I know one of another professor from Spain, of all places, that was also on the board on that deal. And he said straight up, he goes, there's no magic bullet, man. What we've got is what we've got. You know, society will, you know, we've laid the foundation for the direction that society is going in right now. So they're trying their hardest to round these guys up. But the real red flag for me, because for a little bit I was like, well, maybe he's not quite going down that path.
He's watching his words. He's watching his P's and Q's, right? Yeah.
So just recently, he's been selling out tickets all over the world for his new book. Sell out events here in Seattle, Washington, New Zealand, Australia. What? Hang on a second. Time out. What do you mean New Zealand? How does he know that New Zealand's going to be open? How does he know? How in the name of God is he going to get into New Zealand? Who's going to let Jordan Peterson into New Zealand in a few months?
Yeah.
Who's going to let him into Australia?
Why isn't he banned like David Icke or some other people?
How is he going to get into Germany and Austria? These are places that are freaking locked down. There is no idea, as far as I'm concerned. I can't see when these places are going to be open, right? So does he know something I don't know? Is he in on some organization or group of people, or, you know,
privy to something that we don't know?
Exactly. So my guess is, yeah, he is 100% privy to certain stuff that is available.
Well, he attended the Trilateral Commission back in 2018 or something, so right before the coup hit. And I knew right then and there, if he got invited to the Trilateral Commission, you know he's a controlled opposition to some extent. Yeah,
he is 100%. Yeah, I asked. I've got a friend of mine who's he reads people incredibly well. He's just brilliant at it, absolutely brilliant. And he watched John Stossel interviewing him just recently. And he goes, is this the guy that you've been giving? Because I've got some friends that believe, think that Peterson walks on water, and I keep on trying to like slap them around and wake them up, but they haven't gotten there yet. And Mike was like, is this the individual that you've been trying to wise Jackie and Mike up on? I'm like, yeah. He goes, he's dark, dude. He goes, there's something's not right there. I'm like, thank you. Yeah. So
he's an elevator that doesn't go to the top floor. And he stopped short on various topics. I remember he was in New York City and he's a big advocate for this Alexander, what's his face, the guy that wrote Gulag Archipelago.
Solzhenitsyn.
Thank you. And someone mentioned another book that he'd written that's kind of hard to get your hands on, and started pressing Jordan Peterson on the topic, and he wouldn't touch it because it's a third rail.
Well, here's another thing. Okay, Peterson pontificates about Friedrich Nietzsche. Okay, here's something about Friedrich Nietzsche that nobody knows about. Friedrich Nietzsche was a self-diagnosed lunatic. Okay, he didn't want his works published. Friedrich Nietzsche did not want his works published in any way, shape, or form. Okay, the person that published his works was actually his sister. His sister went against Friedrich Nietzsche's will and wishes and published his works. And not only did she publish his works, she was also an ardent supporter of the National Socialist Party during the 20s, 30s, and the 40s. Guess who she gave his works to?
Right.
And then guess which propaganda department actually utilized his works in their propaganda?
Oh, I could only venture a guess that.
And it gets even better, dude.
Go on.
At the end of the Second World War, the OSS, which was the spy agency for the US, got
the predecessor to the CIA. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd love people out there to actually research the amount of National Socialists that were brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip that were actually involved in the formation of the CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we always point out Warner von Braun as being, the one of the main individuals for Operation Paperclip, but there was a slew of others that
they ended up in the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry. They ended up everywhere, dude.
Well, yeah. Also, we brought a lot of there was the Japanese, where we didn't necessarily the United States didn't really have a Nuremberg trial for the Japanese, and a lot of their experiments, torturing Chinese citizens, wound up being recruited by modern pharmaceutical companies also. Yeah.
But it's very, very interesting. But that's what I was saying. Like, you got this, like Peterson quotes Nietzsche and this and that and everything else. And it's like, well, hang on a second. Why don't you tell people that he is a self-diagnosed lunatic?
Well, he's not a religious person either, Jordan Peterson, from what I understand.
Apparently, according to watching his wife recover, he's found Jesus.
Oh, God.
Right.
After going to the Trilateral Commission, nonetheless.
Yeah.
And probably rubbing the Pope's feet, too, while we're at it.
He's a self-professed atheist.
Yeah, yet he has all those videos about, God and the Bible, and many people, the passive listener would assume that he's somewhat of a God-fearing man, but he's certainly not from the more videos I've watched of him. I don't follow him anymore. I got off once I heard he went to the Trilateral Commission to give a speech. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, are you serious? So someone obviously got into his ear, sat him down, and explained him the way the world works, and maybe he freaked out and had a nervous breakdown because of we can only venture a guess. It's a very subjective topic, and we'll never know the truth of it.
Yeah, I've been through hell and back, dude. Myself, I've been through hell and back. Like even just if people saw what I was having to deal with and having to work my way through. Just in the last 2 weeks of being in New Zealand before I had to come back out here, majority of people would be buried balls deep into a bottle of scotch still, because I lost everything, dude. I'm literally starting from ground zero again, pretty much. I rolled the dice to go down in New Zealand. I came back out here. It cost thousands upon thousands of dollars to move down there and then move back out here. The company that I was working for, they left me high and dry. The last 2 weeks in New Zealand, I had a 2-week window to get out. And the company I was working for, they took my company vehicle from me. They took my cell phone from me. They went apeshit. And
Was it COVID related or just
no, but it was, I can't talk about it too
right.
much, unfortunately. It was certainly business related.
Yep.
And, you know,
Well, the good thing is that, given the circumstances regarding the labor force in the United States, there's plenty of jobs, and there's definitely a dire need for people with skills and some knowledge.
I've already, I have solid, I'm making enough money to keep the wolf from the doors. We're starting another business as we speak, and I'm still doing the channel stuff.
Well, good on you, mate. That's good to hear.
But I was just going to say, it's like, with everything that I've been through in my entire life, I've never, ever, ever touched one pill, not one, to try to make life better for myself, to try to get through stuff or anything. I drank alcohol for a little while, and that was it, and when
you're refusing to put the rosy colored glasses on is from what
and the reality of the situation is, it's like, I don't care what anybody says, man. It's like, if you're falling off the rails on that sort of shit, you're weak. You're fucking weak. That's it in a nutshell. And I would sit in front of that dude and tell him that. It's like, you're weak, dude. Break him.
Well, so many people now turn to some type of pill or substance to keep themselves numb from it all. I don't necessarily blame those individuals, but
no, I don't.
When you're sober,
them, but it's like, I'm talking about Peterson himself.
Oh yeah,
out
there was Klonopins with him too, which is kind of weird to get addicted to. That's not necessarily a choice of preference for drug addicts.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. Leave him alone.
Well, people. The thing with drug use is that it gives you a lot of feelings with no emotions, especially with OxyContin and painkiller, pain medication. That's one thing I've taken away. Again, it gives you an intense feeling with no emotion.
Yeah.
And when people are kind of stuck in their apartments, you go out into the public square where everyone's got their mouth diapers on, chin bra, and there's no outlet for single men. The lack of civic duty or lack of some type of outlet group where there's not a monetary gain being attached to it. It's very hard. There's very few outlets for guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the middle of reading the book called Bowling Alone. It's a dated book. Apparently there's an updated version. And he was talking about books by Robert. Hang on, I have it in front of me. Robert B. something. I can't read it. It's kind of far away from me. Anyway, the book's called Bowling Alone. And he talks about things like Knights of Columbus, which is a Catholic charity group for guys to get together, shoot the shit, talk about various things. The Moose Lodge, the Masons, local churches, just any type of volunteer organization. When COVID hit, what little was left of these civic these civic groups, they've completely collapsed onto themselves. Even
Yeah.
churches, you're getting the sacrament via stream. Well, it kind of defeats the purpose of church now, doesn't it? You're supposed to get together and congregate with one another.
No, the purpose, that's why when I had the opportunity to move back here, because in New Zealand, not only did we have the lockdown, but the people that I was working for, they didn't want me talking to anybody. So I was completely cut off from pretty much everything. And they were just super paranoid people, unfortunately. So the reality of the situation was that when I moved back to where I am now, it's a community where you can get out. It's like, you go to work, everybody's, we're not wearing masks. We're just doing our job, and you can get out into the woods. You can go shooting. You can hunt if you want to. There's all sorts of different masculine pursuits that you can do. You can go four-wheeling if you want to. You can get dirty, muddy. There's no you know, and the funny thing is that Olympia is just down the street
Nice.
from us, but yet once you get to where I'm living, it's like 50s America, you know.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, it's actually really good. It's very, very healthy, very healthy.
Well, do you think doing a lot of these segregate activities is a distraction from what real men pursue, which is like to get laid and kind of like have a good time, so to speak? What do you reckon?
I've actually never really understood that stuff, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I, as far as being a sexually promiscuous kind of man, I've never been that kind of guy. In all sincerity, I've only ever really had a handful of long-term relationships, and that's been pretty much it. So, you know, for me to actually I find a large amount of happiness in just being by myself. You know, it just yesterday I was out in the woods, just chilling out in the snow and just being in nature. And yeah, it's one of those deals. Like I go to the gym every morning, 6 days a week, actually sometimes even at night. And you know, there's a crew of people in those places. It's great to shoot the shit, have a good laugh. Like I was in the gym this morning. There's a couple of dudes in there that are they train hard, they lift hard. One of them's actually an up and coming MMA fighter, and you know, he's an absolute goddamn animal. We just all shoot the shit. We just talk about different stuff. We're all pretty much on the same wavelength.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, you know, that the other guys, they're married. One of them's got a couple of kids, ex-US military, armed forces, and
Well, the thing is that I don't know if you're aware of it. You know, you're much older, but for me, and you know, spending my teens and 20s, the media apparatus of things kind of reinforce this idea that you got to be in it to win it. Get out, party. So you know, there's this constant this reinforcement mechanism saying you're missing out on so much staying inside, when in fact you're kind of not.
Oh God, you really hit on something there, man.
Well, just look at the, you know, if you spend some time on YouTube, you get these ads where it's like every advertisement, or I'm assuming they all stem from the same marketing firm, where they have this beat bop music and some woman's, you know, run really fast and working out, and you know, you got to look buff and great, and you're a loser if you're not looking like us. And I'm like, God, that's just not reality, man.
No, it's not. It's not. Dude, trust me. For a 54-year-old, I train pretty damn hard, and I can tell you right now that the dude that is like the up and coming MMA fighter that's out of our gym, he's a goddamn monster. I mean, he's 6'3", 270, 280. He's a beast of a human being. He don't even have a six-pack hat. Mm-hmm. You know, he's still a bit of a bubba. You know, I'm not saying that he's flashed or anything like that. You can just tell, right? So, yeah, all this stuff is just an absolute. And I've never ever in my entire life had abs, ever. Mm-hmm. Even I went from weighing 180 pounds when I first became an IndyCar mechanic. I went from about $180 down to 155, and even then,
still no abs.
they were barely showing, dude, barely, and that was 6 months. And it's just like to actually get to that level of physique is an incredible amount of dedication. And when I mean an incredible amount, I'm talking ridiculous. Like there's this one dude on Instagram right now, and he's got photographs of himself when he first got, you know, down in weight, leaned out, you know, built six packs, the whole 9 yards. And then he's showing pictures of himself today. And he's like, yeah, when I was doing that, I was at the gym 14 days a week, meaning he was in the gym twice every day, 7 days a week for 6 months. And he was having to do, how long? It was an hour and a half of cardio. He'd train like an MF in the morning. And then after work, he'd go and do an hour and a half of cardio. Hard cardio, where he was just maxing his heart rate out, right? And then he's doing, I would say on average, most probably about 5,000 to 6,000 calories worth of exercise a day, and limiting his intake to 200 to 2,200 calories. That's miserable.
Right.
I don't even call that living.
Well, I'm Italian, so I live on carbs. I don't, I make no
bones about that.
it. Like, I need pasta and I need pizza. And if I was stuck on a deserted island, the one food I would want is a loaf of bread. And that's the thing. I grew up with a lot of. Basically, my social circle was comprised of a lot of bodybuilders and guys that abuse steroids. And, looking at them now and how, not necessarily how out of shape they are, but I have a few friends that are balding. I have a few guys that have erectile dysfunction from abusing steroids. And I kind of just lagged along with them. I watched what they did and I got behind the weights, but I would never go full ham like they did. And that's the thing.
That's the other thing is many of these people are on PEDs, dude, performance enhancing drugs. There is such a dark side to the fitness industry. It is unbelievable. I'm
really good friends, and he's going to be listening. I'm friends with one former bodybuilder, and I told him, like, listen, I want to lose about 20 pounds. I'm in my 30s. What should I do? And he's about the same age as you, and he tells me just walk. Just go outside and walk every day. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. You don't have to put that much strain on your body, man. Just go out and walk 2 miles a day and do it every day, and don't eat so much at night, and you'll be fine. You'll lose weight and you'll be in shape.
Straight up. Just walk. And if you're going to do your carbs, do them between when you get up in the morning to when you're to maybe
the 5 minutes before to go to bed, like me.
Don't cut your carbs out, just knock them back maybe 50%, but increase your protein intake.
Well, here's the thing is, and I noticed this amongst people, millennials in their 30s now, is that let's say they were in shape and had abs when they're like 24, 25. Well, your testosterone is going to start plummeting in your early 30s, and you start getting a little bit of belly fat, and they start panicking. They start starving themselves. They start coming up with these cockamamie different type of diets. And it's like as if they're trying to combat age. And, we're in a society where we reward youth. We don't care about the old wise man, such as yourself. And, a lot of these younger guys who are in the manosphere, they don't want to listen to men that are much older than them who actually have experience, whether it's divorce, whether it's having children, whether it's some type of hardship. And, they don't necessarily want to hear that, hey, listen, that tattoo on your shoulder, it's going to fade and it's going to look like a big black and blue mark by the time you're 50. And you're going to look at that tattoo and be like, wow, what an idiot I was. My grandfather is covered to head and toe in tattoos, and it looks like someone just beat the shit out of him. And he always looks at them and he's like, yeah, that was stupid.
Was he in the military?
Yeah, he was in the military.
There's only two groups of people that age that have tattoos. They're either
ex-cons,
ex-con, or in the military.
Right, and it's weird because that's who would get tattoos up until I think in the mid 80s they not decriminalized, but they gave out licenses for tattoos. Yeah, it was decriminalization because it was illegal to get tattoos up until
interestingly enough, it's like when I was in Russia and the Ukraine during 2009 and 2010, I came across some individuals and they were trying to cover up their artwork, and I looked at the one dude and I was like, nice tattoos, man. And he quickly pulled his sleeve down to like hide them, because in that part of the world, I was in Odessa in the Ukraine when that shit went down.
Wow.
And you've got you're either an ex-con or the military, and there's no difference really between the two.
It's funny you're bringing this up. I was interviewing this one guy from Kosovo, and sitting down having a chat, and there's a couple other guys that I was working with, and they were like, oh, he seems really good for the job, we should hire him. And I go, hold on a second, did you see his tattoo? And I'm like, yeah, well, what's the big deal? He has a tattoo. And I'm like, that's a tattoo that means he was in prison in Kosovo during the war. Don't hire this guy. Are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. He goes, well, so, people from other parts of the world have tattoos as a signifier that they were either did crime, killed someone, or were in the military or war or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's another aspect of society, where today you've got individuals, a lot of these young guys out there that are going out and getting all this artwork, and the only reason they're doing it is to try to make themselves look harder or meaner or something than what they actually are. And when these guys actually end up in an environment where they're face to face with people, say of a foreign nationality, and they're trying to, level up with them, it's a lot of these kids are ending up in a lot of freaking trouble in different parts of the world. It's like there was this one of Peterson's rules, like you've got to be dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be dangerous, this dangerous person. You got to embrace this dark side of yourself. And I've come across some of these younger monsters that have embraced these beliefs and these rules, and it's just like, man, you're just really lucky I have my shit under control, because right now you'd be just crying for mama. It's amazing watching how some of these younger guys are actually.
They call it the live fast, die young theory. So you're getting these guys now with a neck tattoo, or they get hand tattoos to look hard and tough. Yeah. And, it's kind of pathetic when you see a guy with a neck tattoo also wearing a chin bra. Right. Like, how could you be tough and all manly if you're wearing a mask because of COVID? So it's become a bit of a joke. Like, what's next? Now you get a tattoo on your forehead, which the media is now promoting. There was all these degenerate rappers with I remember the guy Gucci Mane. He's got an ice cream cone tattooed on his cheek. And since I relocated, I moved from New York to the South. Kind of close to the South. But I see more and more people with tattoos versus in New York, where people still have some type of, they kind of identify more with their ethnic group. Yeah. And you move down south, or you move to other parts of the United States where you kind of get the general air quote white person. Yeah. And they are covered in tattoos because I think they kind of lack a certain identity. And here's the other thing I've also realized with tattoos, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of people getting so many tattoos is the lack of state of permanence. A tattoo is a signifier that I exist, I'm real, I really did that to myself, because everything around them is constantly transient and moving. Yeah,
it's interesting because I as a kid, I just about lost my left leg from the knee down. I had a pretty serious accident. Mm-hmm. And while I was in hospital, for 4 months, and they were slowly but surely, getting this leg sorted out. One of the things I had to go through was skin grafts, a couple of skin grafts. Mm-hmm. And as a 10, 11-year-old, the level of pain of the skin grafts was actually worse than the accident. So it was actually both legs, but the left leg was the worst. And they put me in the skin, for the skin graft, they put me in the burns and tattoo removal ward. And Jesus Christ almighty, that was enough to put me off ever wanting to have a tattoo of any sort, because I was just like, I was literally in a bed beside a woman who was having to have her tattoos. She was wanting a particular tattoo removed.
Right.
And how they did it back in the day was they slowly but surely took a layer of skin off, let it heal, take another layer of skin. The majority of people that went through that process, they did it once, like got one layer of skin removed, and then that was it. I had to have 2 skin grafts done. It was absolutely this, like my skin, because they shot me up so full of antibiotics, my skin started to heal into the bandage the first time round. And they actually tied me down to a goddamn bed, dude. And slowly but surely, with no local anesthetic in any way, shape, or form, they tried to moisten the bandage as best they possibly could, but it still wouldn't come all the way off. So they got a scalpel out and slowly sliced away at raw meat skin. It was the most excruciatingly painful thing I'd ever been through in my entire life. And then I had to go through it again. But fortunately, the second time, the bandage, they removed it a lot sooner. They didn't make the same mistake on the other leg. And it was just, yeah.
Wow.
Not,
yeah, probably those are the early years of doing skin grafting too. They've come quite a way. I actually have a cousin. She just went through getting skin graft done to her hands, and the amount of physical therapy, and she has to exercise her hands because that's you're constantly moving that part of your body, and if it doesn't heal the right way, you'll get infections, and if it heals if it doesn't heal the right way, you'll lose mobility in your fingers.
Yeah, you lose mobility because the skin is it heals harder than the regular skin.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not fun. It's like I've got literally severed raw nerve endings in certain areas on my left leg, and it's like it's just not fun. Even at 54 years of age, I still, if I hit that area of my leg in the wrong way, it'll drop me to the ground, dude.
I recently went on a date with one girl, and she was covered head to toe in tattoos. And then, we were going on a few dates, and the last date we went on, she got another tattoo. I'm like, oh, well, what's that two about? Oh, it's my dead boyfriend. I'm like, oh my God, you got a tattoo of your dead boyfriend, like this, some type of Roman numeral, like that date means so much to me and him. And I'm thinking, like, if you can't get past a previous boyfriend who had passed away, no guy's really good. Guys are going to come along and say, well, who am I then? If you got a tattoo of this dead guy, he's obviously more important than me. So it's just weird how women don't.
I take it you're
not aware of what other people are thinking about what it is they're putting on their body, or what their actions and how people perceive these actions.
Yeah,
especially men, because in God forbid you ridicule or judge her, you're not going to get the goods. And that's part of the reason why we're in the state we are today, is that you're not allowed to judge people. Right. You're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to say stop. And you see that with the government now, where they keep pushing and further radicalizing, its citizens. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's very, like I said, I went through Russia, Ukraine. Then I studied a lot to do with the whole Marxist, communist situation that went on in Soviet Russia. In depth, actually. I actually even started to learn Russian language because I was figuring I was going to actually go back a few more times. So to learn the language would help tremendously. And, I got a good grasp on everything that was going on in that part of the world. And the interesting thing about it is you're really seeing the same stuff starting to play out in Western society, especially since this last couple of years with a certain virus situation that's been going on. It's just like this has just been a massive it's literally Marxism that's playing out. It's what I've seen play out in New Zealand is the same what I've seen play out in Australia. And it's just like you're talking about. It's like you can't say certain things about certain individuals. You can't say certain words.
Not all women are like that.
Yeah,
that ethnic group, you can't say that. I don't judge the group. I judge the individual. I mean, these are very boomerish tropes that I hear. Recently,
well, it's interesting. I'm going to give you a little insight. Like, in Soviet Russia, it got to the point where you couldn't smile at anybody. I remember being out there and I was like, the younger people would you'd maybe get a smile from a younger person, right? But if you're looking at talking or dealing with an older person, they always had this just deadpan kind of not happy look on their face. And it was just like, I asked the people that I knew out there, I'm like, why is this? And they said, well, in Soviet times, if you were caught smiling, you were considered mentally unstable. If you smiled at another individual, you were considered to be mentally unstable, and you could actually report that person to the Cheka, the secret police. And some of those people would just vanish, right? So in New Zealand, during the first lockdown, they literally had, the government made it okay for citizens to actually call the police on other people that weren't following the lockdown rules.
Right. Yeah.
And I was telling the one particular individual, because he got called in, and the phones were run red hot. There was so many reports just in Auckland alone. There was thousands upon thousands of reports from the citizenry dobbing in other citizens for being outside or going for a walk or, you know, taking their kid to the beach. It was just unreal. And that, New Zealand, as far as I'm concerned, is a model for the degradation of Western society based purely on like this feminist agenda, this feminist Marxist ideology, because it's just playing out. And I'll put it out there on this right now. I'll tell you, don't be surprised if New Zealand goes into another lockdown.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Well, how much of a difference between, and you know, I don't know that much about New Zealand. I always equated for almost 10 years now, Australia being more the model for the Anglosphere, where
it's actually, in all honesty, it's actually New Zealand. My uncle worked. My uncle was the commissioner of Crown Lands on the South Island of New Zealand. His name was Trevor Bryant. You're more than welcome. I have no problem putting his name out there because he's like in his late 70s, so
yeah,
he doesn't have.
He probably doesn't care at this point. Yeah.
But he was personal friends with during the 80s the then Prime Minister David Longy, and my father and my uncle would always have these arguments about the one world government and the one world currency and all this sort of stuff. And as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I used to hear my father and my uncle just going at it, right? Because my father was a businessman and my uncle was this socialist, Marxist-minded,
Right.
government employee.
Bureaucrat.
Yeah. So I was, Christmas time of 2019, I'm talking to him about that stuff. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, we're just about there, Lawrence, we're just about there. And I'm like, well, how long's this stuff been playing out for? And he goes, and he explained, and it's all come from the United Nations via this whole
Sustainable development.
Yeah. It's very, very, it stems from, it does stem from the Masons, believe it or not. It does come from the upper degree, because what most people don't realize is that everything that's gone on in the world for the past 500 odd years has so much of it has come from these individuals utilizing this ancient knowledge, esoteric knowledge, to manipulate society and the world to go down a specific path that predominantly feeds their needs. And they understand this whole solar cycle of the world and the time frame that we've entered into. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring about, they look at the time frame that we're in this solar cycle, and they're looking at it and they're like, okay, what can we do that will bring about wealth and success for us, and how can we manipulate the populations that will work in this time frame. Even Ronald Reagan had it in his journals. He would talk about this stuff. I've been through the Reagan Museum a number of times when they had Ronald Reagan's personal journals open.
Right.
I stood there for hours reading Reagan's works, and even though Reagan wasn't a Mason, he still followed their
He gave us no fault divorce, and he weaponized Wall Street against the masses.
Oh yeah.
He destroyed a lot of the public sector and privatized a lot of different things. Hedge funds came about under the second half of the Reagan administration.
Was he the one that? Oh, what was it called? There was
put a bunch of mental patients out on the streets or a crack epidemic. That was brilliant.
Yeah, no, there was after the market collapse of the 30s, they put this invisible wall up between the public banking and the industrial banking, the corporate banking. There was, I'm trying to remember the name.
It's not Glass-Steagall. I think Glass-Steagall's something else.
Yeah,
but
I think it was
Clinton that killed Glass.
Glass.
I just don't know the name of it. I do know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, it was Clinton that killed Glass-Steagall.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much damage the Reagan administration inflicted on the masses, and he pitched himself as being this tradcon, and he realized at this time, because of what was going on in the 60s and 70s with Summer of Love, people doing cocaine, Studio 54, disco, and the general debasing. That's when the right decided to use the public sphere to enforce some type of morals onto the masses, and that's where you start getting the concept of the deadbeat father came about under the Reagan administration, and that's where you get things like these ridiculous alimony rules and what is it? Not Section 8, but WIC checks and SNAP and all these other type of goodies for single mothers. That all came about under Reagan.
Yeah. No, Reagan people. There's a lot of people like in I used to live in Ventura County, in Thousand Oaks, which was just, I was literally a 2-minute drive from the Reagan Library, and Reagan made that county incredibly wealthy. So in that particular part of the world, he's absolutely revered as this incredible conservative that did so well for business and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, time out. He did incredibly well for the industrial military complex. That's just
he broke the back of communism. Don't you know that?
Like
Wars.
Like Barack Obama killed Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, right. I listened to this one guy, Joe Atwill. He did it's called Powers and Principalities. Does it with this guy who's been on my show a couple times, and he lives in California. They did a whole show on Reagan. In the intro to the podcast, he was talking about when he met Ronald Reagan and how frightening he was meeting him. He was stone cold, very stone face, stone cold, massive, 6 foot something, would be, looks like a guy that would totally, break your neck with his bare hands. And when I mentioned that to one of my buddies, he read a book on Reagan, and he was saying that when Reagan got shot, that the surgeons had a hard time cutting him open, how much muscle he had and how big he was. And it kind of coincided with what this guy Joe Atwill was talking about. And I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, because even Obama he's a commanding presence also. As a trip.
Yes.
And just back to my old Ukrainian friend, Dr. Svetlana Oksenyenko, she had a photograph of herself with him at those warfare labs in Kharkiv in the Ukraine.
Well, a lot of the U.S. presidents are kind of commandeering very kind of alpha-esque qualities, no doubt about it. LBJ would just burp and curse. Nixon was just wasted, threatened to drop nukes on everyone. At the end of the day, a lot of them are just dudes, but they're guys that commanded a lot of respect. Even, as much as I'm not a big fan of Barack Obama, but he smoked cigarettes, and when someone pressed the question like, where do you smoke your cigarettes, he goes, I got a secret hiding spot, no one's ever going to know. I thought that was kind of cool, but they're a lot of ways they're all puppets. I mean, we kind of know that, and they represent different factions. Donald Trump is what, 6'3", 6'4". His son is now towering over him. And you look at someone like Donald Trump and what he went through his entire life. He cut his teeth to get to where he was, and whatever had happened to him, I mean, that's a subject for another day. But again, you really got to battle through some serious shit to get to that level. And unfortunately, not many men are up for that challenge. And, and that's not just the presidency. That's within any type of corporation or anything that requires bylaws or government bylaws. It's a job that people don't necessarily want. And the people that gravitate towards anything with Robert's rule of law, whatever it's called, bylaws, and, people at, a chairman position, the average person doesn't want to do that. And the people that gravitate towards that are usually people who you do not want in those positions of power.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I can't remember, there's a couple of countries, I think they're in South America, and they will not elect people like we elect. Like they actually have some of the, like one country's got their prime minister was literally one of the poorest people in the country, because that's the person that you can trust. He was in the position that he was in because he was happy being in that position. He can't be brought. It's just like, really?
Well, Maduro of Venezuela, he was a bus driver prior to becoming the president of Venezuela. He was what's his face's right-hand man, his name, I'm drawing a blank. What the hell was the lunatic in Venezuela who died of throat cancer? What's his name?
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, you're gonna make me look it up now. Anyway, so Maduro was a bus driver. I know Bolsonaro was a captain in the military, and he looks like the guy's a psychopath. And for South America, for that matter, they tend to gravitate towards more masculine figures. That's one reason why so many Hispanics had voted for Donald Trump, because when it comes to positions of power, you want someone that's masculine. So many Americans gravitated towards Bernie Sanders, and I know a lot of people that voted for Bernie or wanted Bernie to be president. And I try to explain to them, yeah, sure, I like Bernie, but I don't want him to be president. And they're like, well, what do you mean? How could you say that? I go, well, I don't want him going head to toe with actual communists who are missing, look at Hun Sen from Cambodia, who's missing an eyeball, taking a grenade to the face, who's an actual communist.
Yeah.
Like, do I want Bernie? Because they're just going to laugh at him. Or looking at Putin. Putin was, a bag man for a lot of, bureaucrats in the KGB. Oh, I'm sorry, Bernie, you're going to preach to me about communism?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
You're not
Bernie wouldn't stand a chance.
Right. Exactly. Bernie, and unfortunately, you look at Finland just elected their new premier, first female in her early 30s. And she got caught getting drunk and partying.
Well, that's the thing that blows me away. That's the one thing I cannot believe that New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is still in power. It's just like the amount of shit that woman is taking now is unbelievable. It's just...
Well, it makes you wonder how many drugs she might be on. I mean, she does not look, she looked quite lucid in her interviews where she's like smiling and like, yeah, I'm in way over my head. Kamala Harris is another one. It's quite obvious she does not want to be the vice president. And she was like, what the hell did I get myself into? And I think that goes, whatever the mechanisms behind the shadow government, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Once these people get into positions of power at the bureaucratic level, the managerial class, as I like to call it, they just shit their pants. They're like, oh my God, what the hell did I just get myself into? And Trump, for that matter, I think was another one. I think within the first month or two of him becoming president, he was like, "This is the hardest job I've ever taken on in my life, and I've been through."
Dude, you could see it the night when he won the election.
Yes,
everybody
he was. Oh my God, I can't
cheering.
believe you know that. He was shitting his pants, man.
Yeah, he was, dude. He was.
And I have his last interview
oh.
right before he became elected, and I'm listening to his interview. I should send you a copy of it because it's very hard to get on YouTube. That the ongoing censorship. But I downloaded his very last interview right before he got elected, and he sounded like a defeatist. He's like, "Yeah, it's like it was a good run. We had a good run. It was really nice people around America, and like I really don't want to be president right now."
Yeah, no, he didn't.
He panicked when he found out he was going to become president. He panicked to put his cabinet together because he didn't actually think he was going to win. And I think within about 6 months of his presidency, everything went sideways. He had a long talk with the people that rule the world, and basically said, "You ain't building no wall. You're going to pump that stock market up, and we're going to dump it all in your face when COVID hits."
Take if you ever can, take a look at him when he went to visit the Pope. When him and Melania were at the Vatican, it was all smiles, everything. And they went into that secret room where there's no media, no nothing. I don't know what that room leads to or where it goes or what happens in that room. But Trump, the look on Trump's face was like, fuck. And the look on Melania's face was, her body language was, get me the fuck out of here. It was like they'd seen aliens, dude. It's unreal. I showed some of my friends, and they're like, holy shit, you're not kidding. I'm like, dude, I'm not an expert on body language, but the stuff that I've been around, I know my situational awareness is on steroids. And I know when shit's going south, or I've gotten myself out of so many predicaments because of my understanding of situational awareness. And what I saw from those two people when they came out of that room, Melania, more than anything else, that was a frightened female. I don't know.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Melania definitely looks quite shooken up. Trump just got a big fucking clown smile, and Pope Francis looks like he's ready to kill someone.
Yeah. I don't know what went on in that room, but it was not fucking good, dude.
Bringing up the Pope right now, I do think the Catholic Church is waging a war on the United States also, and it's something that I've been kind of contemplating the last few weeks, because the Catholic charities are also bringing a monster amount of Afghanis to the United States, along with people from sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm kind of thinking, like, why the hell is the Catholic Church doing that? And
here's how it works. You have to realize that the Templars / Masons, the head, we're talking the head places for the Templars / Masons, the Catholic Church, and another group of specific individuals from a country that used to be called Palestine. They've all got their main church, mosque, and whatever for the lodge. The main ones are all in Bern, Switzerland, and they're all within the same block of each other. They all have been working together, all quietly, because they've always played both sides of the coin. So it's like, for argument's sake, everybody, I've been telling people for years that Hitler wasn't killed at the end of the Second World War. There's no way.
Wait, the boys of Brazil kind of a situation. He fled to either Brazil or Argentina.
Yeah, because in that part of the world, there's a lot of stuff for some reason, and don't ask me how or why, but there was a lot of knowledge that was in New Zealand that you just wouldn't hear anywhere else.
Right.
It was the bizarrest thing out. And it was like in New Zealand was common knowledge. You know, Hitler didn't die. He's in Argentina. It was like common knowledge in New Zealand. It was always, not always, but with the old war veterans, it was brought up so often.
A lot of the SS
so
relocated to, it's funny because also at the tail end of World War II, the Germans had a new type of submarine that was able to stay submerged for an indefinite period as long as they had enough fuel and food. So around that time, there was a lot of submarine operations heading towards the South Atlantic. So yeah, they definitely. So you could have easily smuggled a lot of people on these submarines and moved them down there.
Well, it's like I've had people ask me, it's like, okay, why is New Zealand so important? What's so important about that?
Well, the elites move there, don't they?
Well, it's not just it's not that. And in the 80s, we had some Americans, and this will come full circle. We had some Americans that showed up in our town, and they were putting in this observatory called Black Birch Observatory. And we were all told it was for watching the stars and all that sort of stuff. Well, one of the guys, Dennis, he was a raging car guy. He had 3 Corvettes, and I was an up and coming petrol head teenager. So I spent a lot of time with this guy, just shooting the shit with him, and he'd take me for a ride in his Corvette. Him and his wife they were super cool people. And I asked him one day, it's like, so what are you what are you watching? What are the stars and everything? He's like, we're not watching any stars down here, son. He's like, we're just watching what everybody else is doing down in Antarctica. That piece of dirt's going to be ours one day. So the reason why New Zealand is so important, and they've got a huge CIA presence in Queenstown, huge CIA presence in Queenstown. So the reason being is you've got the Catholic Church on one side that is in charge of basically the entire continent of South America. And the Argentinians, they ain't going to play nice with the Americans or the Brits. Okay, so the Americans and the Brits, they don't have any say in what happens in that part of the world. Then you got Australia. It's still a little too far north, and New Zealand's just kind of like this quiet little clandestine, nobody really takes too much notice of it part of the world that is a 3-hour flight. When you're down in Queenstown, you are a 3-hour flight from the Arctic Circle. That's it. You can be down there in a blink of an eye. So this comes full circle to the same individuals that pulled off the Second World War, the First World War, the French Revolution, all this sort of stuff, and their cohorts. They always play both sides of the coin, and it's always you might not think it's to their advantage. However, it always is to their advantage. They always come out on top, time and time again. It's like, okay, the CIA were watching Nazis in South America after the Second World War. They knew exactly where all those people were at. That's all there is to it. It's just a simple little game of cat and mouse. It's no different to supposedly, oh gee, we don't know where Osama bin Laden is. We can't find him. We're only the largest military force on the face of the earth, but we just have absolutely no clue where.
Right. It's like, how did you lose the entire Japanese Imperial Navy?
But hang on. But Anderson Cooper can just miraculously show up in Afghanistan and get transported to some mystical, magical cave and have his own one-on-one interview with Osama bin Laden. And nobody's ever questioned that. That's the playing of this both sides.
Well, he's a Vanderbilt too.
Yeah,
don't forget.
Yeah, because I did a video on the world of opposites. And these individuals, they understand how all this stuff works. Where there's one thing going on here, well, we have to have something else going on over here. So it might look like that the Catholics, or as the Masons call them, the mix, have their they've got their thing going, and then you've got the Masons over here with their Hebrew buddies. They're over here doing their thing, and they're meant, you know, there's this constant battle going on, but they're all playing in the same pond.
Well, you have to you also have to realize is that you know, we're living in the modern era. You know, fascism, socialism, communism, these are all relatively new concepts, only been around, what, maybe 200 years or something like that. When did Marx write his book, 1850 or something?
It was later than that. It was,
right. But prior to that, it was mostly kings and aristocrats battling it out, and nobles, and you know, in Southeast Asia, there was, you know, obviously different tribes battling, and you actually, as a simpleton, as a plebe, you knew who was battling who. Today, we don't necessarily see that, and every time you go out and say, okay, I think this group's battling that group, they start labeling all these different things, and you know, label you a fascist, which is, I don't know how that's a pejorative. It's just a form of it's an economic, it's a form of economic
model.
But yeah, so you see this going on. You've replaced aristocrats who are still really in power, and you cloaked it behind democracy, republic, fascism, socialism, communism.
Yeah, it takes the eye off the target.
Correct, exactly. You know, and again, you used to know what your king was doing because he represented you, and if he pissed you off, well, you would not support him, and he wind up getting killed. Same thing during the Roman Empire. If the Caesar was not playing ball, was not technically redistributing money one way or another, the military would step in and whack him.
Yeah, and what the royals. Because, like for argument's sake, what most people don't realize is that, like, there is a noble family still to this day. I think it's two actually that are behind the Catholic Church. So then you've got the crown is behind the Masons, because the head of the Masonic is actually the crown, and
I imagine it's Spain, if it's, if there's, that's right. Spain and Italy had kings and queens up until recently. So you don't know, you don't never hear of anything on what they do these days.
One of the families can trace their lineage back to Caesar's rule. I'm trying to remember their bloody name. They're unbelievably wealthy.
Right. And then with the Jews, it's the Rothschilds who pretty much created modern day accounting.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with the Hebes is they were always what I always call them the court jesters, because that's primarily what they were. They were entertainment for the royals and the noble families, but because of their cunning ways, their wiliness, what they were able to do was, like in England, they were the first sheriffs, and people don't realize that. Because at first it was the church that took the money from everybody. That was the form of tax collection. But then if you weren't willing to pay your lot, they had to send in a group of people or an individual of a certain belief system where there was usury to collect that tax. Because the reason why people weren't wanting to pay their taxes to the church because both Christianity and Catholicism, there is no usury in their religious beliefs. With the Hebrews, there was. And what happened is the actual first sheriffs were the tax collectors, were of that nationality. So what would happen is, over time, they were able to worm their way into certain levels of these royal or noble families. And that's how actually the Rothschilds actually got their foot in the door, because they were already in with the royal families, doing trading, all that sort of stuff for royal families. And here's the interesting thing. This is the one thing, like in my Freemasonic Bible here, it tells you right here, it's for Scottish rite use. It's the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, right? So where do the Rothschilds live? Scotland.
I think France.
No. Baron Rothschild, they're based in Scotland.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really pretty interesting. And how they were able to turn, because England used to be Catholic,
Right.
and how they were able to get the country turned over to Protestant was through the ill-gotten insemination of a
King
king.
Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just how they've played this game is absolutely unbelievable, and it's still a game to this day, because it's like the British royal family themselves, they're German. There's nothing British about them.
Right. Yeah.
So it's what they've done is they can now sit back and quietly be who they are, right? And then they have these layers that are before them, like the Rothschilds take care of everything for the crown.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, financially, globally now.
Yeah.
But the moment you talk about getting rid of the Queen, you've got New Zealanders, Australians, certain elements of Canada, Brits, oh my God, you can't.
Right. Well, you have the lieutenant governor still is really the person in charge of like Australia and New Zealand.
But the reality is, if you bring that stuff up,
right,
people lose their minds.
Yeah, it's funny because my buddy from Australia, he says, you understand that the prime minister doesn't control Australia or I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, the lieutenant governor really controls everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what he meant. He goes, we're not like America. We didn't technically separate from you. He goes, we still got the Union Jack on our flags, damn it. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I didn't even think of that. Yep. And it's like, it's called the lieutenant governor. If the lieutenant governor is directly linked to the queen, and if the queen tells the lieutenant governor, hey, disavow the parliament, one snap, that's it. It's over. Your government's gone, and the queen takes it back.
Okay, well, here's a game changer for you, dude. What's the first duty of office of any sitting U.S. president?
Uphold the Constitution.
Nope. The first job that a sitting U.S. president, the first thing that he does once he becomes president, his first duty of office is to go and kiss the Pope's ring and bow before the Queen.
or grope the Wailing Wall.
Yeah. So who's running the show.
Yeah, but at the same time, I am Catholic, so I hear a lot of different things about Catholicism. You also have to realize there's different groups within the Catholic Church, and they fight amongst themselves, similar to the Jews, where it's the Chabad Leibowitz fight with the other Hasidic groups. Yeah. And so it's the same thing with Catholics right now. It's the Jesuits, or the Purple Mafia, as they like to call it, who preach liberation theology. Pope Francis was also a bouncer to a nightclub prior to becoming a priest. He's also the first pope born outside of Europe that's become the pope in like 500, 600 years. So you have all these different various problems. And also you have to also realize, and this is something that no one really talks about, and I would like to talk to Dr. E. Michael Jones about this someday if I ever get the opportunity, is what will happen to the United States once the Hispanics become the majority, because that's a topic that no one likes to discuss. And Catholics are still a minority in the United States, but if the Hispanics keep reproducing and they don't embrace woke ideology, what's going to happen to the United States long term?
It'll just keep on running, mate. They always do. It's no different. Rome's still there, still doing its thing, still running, still operating. Everybody thinks that England.
But if you look at Brazil, I call it the Brazilification of the United States. You're going to start having, private security, a lot of crime. It just makes me wonder, is the United States Foundation still solvent And I kind of tend to think it is in some ways. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
nearly as cucked as, Canada or a lot of European countries. And I do know that not say I do know, but it's quite obvious that the ruling class knows that there's certain areas that are no-go zones. Like you can't roll out these type of vaccine policies across the board.
Yeah, because all you've got to do is, how could I word it? It's like, you've got the single most heavily armed society on the face of the planet. Right. I mean, there's individual states like Texas is the most heavily armed. If Texas was a country, it would be the most heavily armed country, second to the United States. Okay. So the reality of the situation is that the reason why they're pulling all this stupid buffoonery is it's the only way that they can worm their way around the citizenry. They have to use these massive psychological mind games to bring about the degradation of a society so these individuals can actually get their way. And all they're doing, all the elite people do, I call it the money go round. All they've been doing for the last few hundred years, 500 odd years or so, has been they've stolen money from certain areas of the world, and then they transfer it into a country where they can build their wealth with that money. And once that country's built up to a certain point, then they take that money and they transfer it out into another country, and they take that country and they build it up. And it's been going on for time immemorial. So what they're doing is they just continually bring in all these distractions, all these sidetracks: feminism, Marxism, socialism. Now you've got, this war, that war. Now they're having this virus, that virus. They've always got these moving targets to keep everybody continually distracted while they keep on doing the exact same thing that they've always done. That's all it is. So, these young guys that are out there that are completely lost in society, or they have no direction or anything like that, the first thing that they really have to do it's like having an out-of-body experience in some respects. You've got to take a step back and look at the world and go, okay, this shit's been going on for thousands of years. And it has been. It's been going on for a lot longer than even historians or anybody have been telling people. This stuff's been going on for a long, 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 long time. I mean, it goes like the Pirates of the Caribbean, for argument's sake, that was, because there was personal alliances, marriages and stuff like that between the royals and nobles of England with the royals and nobles of Spain. The Brits couldn't send their own military down to the Caribbean or South America to rob the Spanish of the gold. So they're like, well, and it's amazing because I've always thought this. It's like, how did these supposed pirates end up with these massive battleships? I mean, that would be no different till today, going, okay, well, America, we don't want to be seen going to war with Australia, so we're going to allow Eric Prince and his mercenaries to accidentally take control of a whole battleship, the 11th Fleet, and they're going to go to Australia and blow that country off the face of the earth because we want that chunk of dirt. It'd be just too obvious today, it'd be like, hi, hang on a second. But that's literally what they were doing, during the pirate period down in the Caribbean and South America, to take the gold from the Spanish conquistadors that had robbed the gold from the Incas and the Mayans and all that sort of stuff. So these games have been going on for eternity, dude. So it's up to the actual individual to take a step back, look at it and go, okay, this is a game. We know that feminism is an absolute load of shit. It's turned a lot of women into absolute monsters. Okay, We know that this whole virus thing that's been going on for the last couple of years, yep, that's a complete load of bollocks because it showed up in 2002, 3 and vanished in 2004. And, you know, we didn't hear about it then. So why are they doing this? Well, they're doing it to control the population. All right, if they're trying to do this stuff to control the population and pre-program us and keep us in a, because to keep people in a perpetual state of fear is the single most brilliant way to control a population. It's been proven time and time again. I mean, that's how they got the Germans to go down the path that they went down. You know, you have to be scared of this group of people because this group of people is because of the reasons why you've got no money, why you're broke and poor and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, actually, no, it's not really the truth of it. It's the fact that the government has been a bunch of assholes and didn't really know how to run the economy, and they signed this stupid treaty, the Versailles Treaty. So they're always pulling these.
Well, how much of it is it just financial interest? Because if you look back at the rise of Japan, Imperial Japan in World War II, they got most of their naval engineering ideas and, you know, and drawings from the British. And was that a counter against Russia? We already know that there's a long, you know, kind of not bad blood history between the West and Russia, as we can see right now. Was it that we were trying to counter Russia? Was it financial, or was it part of a bigger plan? Because it's really hard to say that this is all planned all along. You do have various black swans throughout history, but if you know anything about James Forrestal, the first head of what the hell was he? First head of the Department of Defense or something. God damn it, that's gonna make me look up James Forrestal now. But he said that nothing's by accident. He goes, if everything was by accident, something would swing in our favor once in a while.
Yeah, I don't really. There's just, honestly, there's just so many coincidences to everything. Like, for argument's sake, like, you know, you're talking about like the Japanese getting their
Secretary of Defense James Forrestal. I was right. I don't know if you know how he died, but he allegedly committed suicide in a mental hospital, thrown out of a window. And he
it sounds like Epstein got to him first.
Yeah, right. But, you know, I thought it was funny. I'm paraphrasing what he had said, that, you know, someone asked him, is it all controlled? Is it all planned ahead? He says, well, if it wasn't, something would go in the people's favor, which nothing really does.
Yeah, it does go in certain individuals' favor. And that's where that is hard to believe, but that whole world of opposites plays in. It's like there's certain individuals that are just continually. The best thing that you can have, and this is where the reading of the book Ordinary Men is absolutely amazing, because you can have somebody that is a general that's in or a Secretary of State, or somebody that's in a really high position, but they're still in the dark. It's really very, very interesting. Not everybody becomes privy to, you know, what's going on, because if they did become privy to what was going on, then you'd have something like say the JFK assassination, where everybody would know exactly what happened, but yet there's an organization, a group of individuals that actually pulled off an event, and they've been able to keep it quiet. People go, well, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nut job, you're a wacko. Well, hang on a second. Think about all the military technology that they've been able to keep under wraps when they've had hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, working on projects. It's like the SR-71 Blackbird, when those things were being developed. I've met a number of guys when I was living in California who were still scared to talk about the SR-71 Blackbird project. One of them was the main hydraulics engineer on the project. He's going, yeah, I can't talk about it. It's like, yeah, but it's
common knowledge.
It's out there. I saw it break the sound barrier as it flew over LA in 1990 on its record run to New York. Yeah, but, you know, there's still, you know, technology in that thing that's, you know, super privy and everything like that. And I just can't really talk about. but you worked on it. And it's like, oh yeah, I worked on it. It's like, dude, that's cool. It's just awesome that I've met somebody that worked on it. It's like, yeah, definitely,
Right.
That's literally the conversation. But there's nothing else. It's like, you can go to the Boeing's museum now in Seattle, and you can see one of the early models. It wasn't called the SR-71 back then. It was something else. I can't remember what it was called. But there's the engines, there's the bird, there it is. You can walk around it, you can touch it, and there'll still be guys out there like, yeah, I can't really talk about it, man.
Let me digressing. So you did a few. You mentioned something about on one of your uploads about New Zealand being somewhat of the new world order model, and your last upload was about electric cars. How much stuff do you know about sustainable development? Because between the ongoing scamdemic and sustainable development, the Great Reset, you'll own nothing to be happy, the year's 2030.
Yeah.
A lot of these have the same endpoint. And
what
COVID
happens
has been an accelerant to get to this endpoint. So
Yeah.
we see the death of the neoliberal model. Henry Kissinger mentioned that COVID's going to end globalization. I thought that was quite telling considering his age. A lot of these, George Soros is in his 90s, Kissinger's in his 90s, and they represent a certain faction for the neoliberal model. Yet we're still marching towards something. What do you see? Give us a blow by blow.
Basically, with I'm a firm, and I'm going to reference quantum physics with this stuff, because quantum physics has proven that the combined human consciousness is actually a real thing. Okay, so wherever the human consciousness goes, the world follows. That's all there is to it. So currently we've got you've got billions of people around the world that don't want to work. They want to have as much as they possibly can have for the least amount of effort possible. They still want to have all their toys, their bells, their whistles. I've read reports on this stuff from the automotive side of it. I read a report back in 2010, purely based on why the youth aren't buying vehicles, right? And what it boils down to is you've got a very socialist, Marxist-minded population now, by majority, because there's a certain group of boomers that brought it in. Those boomers brought into the world the millennials, and then you've also got millennials that have brought in millennials and certain age group boomers into early Gen X's. There's kind of a gray area there that has brought a large amount of Gen Z into the world. So you've got a colossal amount of people out there that are believing in these socialist-minded, Marxist-minded beliefs, ideologies, even though they don't portray themselves as being those ideologies, like feminism, climate change. Like these are religious cults. Like climate change is a religious cult as far as I'm concerned. So where these individuals' consciousness goes, there the planet will follow, but it follows in a way that a lot of people don't really get. It's like whatever you're wanting to bring about, the actual opposite is going to happen. Because let's say you want socialism, Marxism, you want this non-capitalist society, okay? What you're going to get is you're going to get more of what you don't want, which is more of a capitalist society. It's no different to people that want to save the planet from climate change. We've got to stop all this different stuff to save the planet, but what they're going to give you is more of the same stuff that you need to save the planet from. It's bizarre how it works. It's what I'm telling you is the God's honest truth. So what we're going to see is you're going to start seeing capitalism and consumerism is going to keep on rolling. That's all there is to it. That's all that's going to happen. The one thing that will happen is there is certainly going, because the world's becoming split. Humanity is becoming what I would call bipolar. You've got a certain group of people that are living on one side of the spectrum and another group of people on the other side of the spectrum. And as it's really amazing, because as the world population is becoming more and more split, the actual global pole, the world's magnetic poles are actually starting to split. So, and it's fact, NASA's written papers on it. I've read them. It's actually a real thing. And as this population split has become more and more and more severe, so has the polar shift become, and it's the magnetic poles. So all we're going to see is we're pretty much just going to, we're at a status quo, dude. We're just going to keep on seeing the same craziness and madness play out for years and years and years to come. And what I actually personally see happening is there's going to be some sort of massive disaster on the planet. Some sort of massive, massive, massive disaster that's going to snap humanity out of their comatose slumbers and break their beliefs in these silly ideologies and everything like that, because that's the time frame that we're in. You know, you can't move into a time frame that is predominantly oriented towards consciousness and awakening to understanding your own personal consciousness without going through some sort of life-changing event. And that's what I see coming down the pipeline more than anything over the next, I couldn't tell you the time frame, but something's going to snap, dude.
Well, my concern is that you see how belligerent the ruling class is with, promoting trannies and you see what the media is promoting, what black man on white girl. You're just getting, you're getting blasted with all these different concepts that are not based in reality, and that's alarming. And that's what makes me worry. Is like, my God, these people are either I don't know if you follow Z-Man, but Z-Man calls them the cloud people. Yeah, you see, they call them the cloud people, and it's like they're just talking amongst themselves. That also these people don't necessarily talk to the average people. In the past, politicians used to talk to other. They used to go to local towns, talk to people, see what their problems are, and kind of sympathize and, kick that back to the ruling class, saying you got to do this, that, and the other to keep people happy. You're not doing that anymore.
That's part of that splintering of society, that bipolar part of society that's going on. Everybody's just trying to, the world at a certain level is falling apart. And I'm fine with it because it's hilarious, because I know what's going on. I genuinely do. That's part of the reason why you're seeing a lot of this bizarre stuff happening, is also these power players, the people that really do pull the levers, the people that control the media, social media, mainstream media, all this sort of stuff, the education system, the universities. It's all about that. It's like they're having their last gasp grab at trying to control the direction that they want to build the world in their image, and it's slipping from their grasp. So what you're seeing is this fracturing of society, where there's certain individuals of people that are wanting to believe in all this bizarreness, and then a major group of people that are just like, well, that's just batshit crazy. That's lunacy. And the reality of the situation is that lunacy only seems like it's out there a lot more than it is, because of the grip that certain individuals have over the media. It's not as widespread as what people might think. Now, you might have countries like in New Zealand or certain states in Australia where it's out of hand. But if you're in New Zealand, there's only one media source because the New Zealand government pays the media down there. So the New Zealanders are only getting one side of the story. They're not getting any other side of the story. So you're going to have areas of the world that are just going to fall off the face of the earth. Like, what the hell's happened to these people? That I honestly see it's like as society becomes more and more and more fractured, for individuals to have to really wake up to the reality of their ways, they have to go through some sort of massive, not so much a massive life altering experience.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, like a major slap up the side.
Especially with women. I mean, it's going to take something serious to get them to wake out of their comatose state.
Oh yeah. And the reality of the situation, and this is the reality. We're sitting on, globally right now, we're sitting on super volcanoes that are ready to go. Like they've passed their timeline as far as going.
Yep.
Putin might just come absolutely like, fuck you, I'm done, and just start blasting the snot out of Europe, which will drag everybody back into a massive conflict because China will get involved and the US won't win that one. I can tell you that right now.
I agree with you.
That's all there is to it. It's like, because that will be when you've got basically between China and Russia, you've got a 3 million man army. The Allies can't pull that together. And it'll be a ground war. They're not allowed to use nukes anymore, dude.
Yeah.
That's another whole story. They can't, they're not allowed to use nukes anymore. And so it'll just be another massive ground war. I mean, this is going to sound whacked, but if things get really bad, start seeing some really bizarre shit start showing up in the skies again, like it did during the Second World War. I mean, we are.
Well, you see that the federal government keeps floating this idea about UFOs. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you follow Bill Cooper, who passed. He was murdered. He said if the government starts floating the idea that extraterrestrials are real, it's another lie, and they're just trying to. It's another way to bring about a new world order. So oh look, there's extraterrestrials. We have to go and save the. We have to.
And that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying earlier on. That just these individuals know what time frame we're in. They know what the next 2,200 years is about. It's all part of the solar cycle. The Mayans followed that calendar. The Chinese have it in their calendar. This whole solar cycle stuff, and it's. It's about waking up to your own consciousness, and then how the consciousness of humanity, how you fit into the combined consciousness of humanity, and then it goes on from there. So what they're trying to do, and I was watching just a thing just recently, I was on a show at my buddy's place. I can't remember the name of the show, but it was on the Masons. They're literally, they're not shy about it anymore. They're like, we're wanting to build the world in our image. That's it. So these individuals, not just the Masons, the Catholic Church, the Kabbalists, they know what time frame they're in. They're used to having the game their own way for the past 2.5 or 2,200 years. They don't want to let go of it. That's all there is to it.
So now, digressing here, we can wrap up our conversation. What does a single guy do in order to safeguard themselves from, these problems on the macro? Like, we obviously have an inflation issue. There's a housing shortage. There's a lot of problems with labor. what could you recommend to young guys? You know, because for me,
learn a skill set. Learn a skill set that's going to serve you. Learn a job, whether it's welding. There's always going to be welders. With the direction of the automotive industry, I can tell you right now, learn to become a mechanic.
Yeah.
Seriously. There's going to be, not everybody is going to be able to afford, and I'm still working in the automotive industry to this day. I'm seeing what's happening with the sales side of it and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, they're not putting gasoline vehicles out there like they used to. You know, so the reality of the situation is that if you learn a skill set that can serve you, the oil industry is not going to go anywhere, because the oil industry is actually what is fueling the whole green industry, contrary to what popular belief would tell you. But that's the God's honest truth. The oil industry is fueling the green industry, and it's from the composites to build the turbine blades on the windmill machines, to the chemicals that they need to extract copper, to make the copper coilings and the electric motors and the generators to produce the electricity. The oil industry isn't going to go anywhere. So there's always going to be, and that funds the pharmaceutical industry also. The huge amount of byproduct from crude oil is used in the pharmaceutical industry and medications, believe it or not. So learn to weld, become a mechanic. There's a housing shortage. Okay. So they're not building houses because of the cost of housing. Learn to work on homes, become an electrician, become an air conditioning heating expert. Any sort of manual based work is going to serve you so well, because you can move anywhere around the country, you can move anywhere around the world. It gives you the ability to be able to do something with your hands, and if you can do something with your hands, you can do anything. Trust me on that. I started out in the auto body industry. I've worked in the aircraft industry. I've worked on cars that have ran at the Indy 500, raced at Le Mans.
How about just second-hand used car market? I think is going to explode.
Oh, it's already exploding.
Type of repair industry, appliances, things like that. I think is going to be
yeah. Because in all honesty, I mean, if they're not going to put certain stuff out there, and if you can repair stuff, believe it or not, if you're keeping an old car going, because once your car gets past 15 years, you're actually going to start chipping away at the carbon footprint that car left when it was first produced new, because it's gone past the average lifespan of a vehicle in North America, which is 15 years. And once you go past that average lifespan, you've kept one new vehicle from being sold, produced, or whatever else. So the actual carbon footprint actually starts going backwards on. And that's the one thing that they never talk about that stuff in any of the news articles or reports or any of that stuff, right? So any sort of repair work, keeping, like you said, appliances, like my MacBook that I've got. I mean, it's a secondhand MacBook. I won't buy anything like that brand new. You know, I'll go down the road and find somebody that can repair one or has repaired one, and it works absolutely perfectly for a third the price, you know, because just doing my bit.
Yeah, no, 100%. I kind of echoed those words.
Any sort of manual based labor that can serve society, this sitting office cubicle, tapping away at a keyboard, on a phone, doing sales or telemarketing, or if people think that they can sit on their laptops and try to sell shit for Amazon or anything like that, market's absolutely saturated now. You know, there's a massive shortage,
skilled labor,
of people that can actually fucking work, dude.
Yeah.
Massive shortage. You only got to go to California. It's like all the people that build the homes in construction, the majority of people that work in the automotive industry, the majority of people that are doing any sort of, you know, mechanical repair, interiors, just even electrical, home appliance, electrical, like the guys that would come in and do the electrical work at my business, they, you know, the guy that owned the company was, you know, a gringo, but all his employees were Mexicans. They're from South America. You know, if you took every Mexican or South American out of California, California would fall apart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. So those are the people that are filling these jobs, these positions. And I tell you what, you'll get 100 times more satisfaction doing a job like that, like actually getting to the end of a hard day's work, than anything else on the face of the earth. I mean, I did it for years. The only reason I'm not doing it now is I had a huge accident, April of last year. It pretty much near blew my left rotator cuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a car fall on me, and it caused a huge amount of.
Was it on a lift?
No, it was actually on a jack stands.
Wow.
And I didn't want to be working on the car because I couldn't use the lift. It was during lockdown, and when I was lowering that car down, I had to get underneath it to move one of the stands out of the way, and the jack let go.
Oh shit! I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and I'm all right now, but it's taken over. It's about 16 months so far to actually get my left arm even close to operating like my right arm. I mean, if you see the before photographs, it's just like my left arm is dead. It's like I've had a stroke. It's unreal. So yeah, I didn't want to be doing what I was doing, but that's what the guy I was working for wanted me to do. So I worked on that car, and when I was lowering it down, the jack let go, and it fucked my world up, dude.
And as far as the young men being Mgtow, do you have any words of advice you can give to them, considering the lack of available women? And I think the situation's only going to get worse as far as man-women relations go. There's a lot of young guys that are listening to my show who still chase the unicorn, let us say, quite blue-pilled. And I have another faction of guys who are more in lines with the way we think, where you kind of the focus.
I had an old Korean War veteran tell me something many years ago when I was first married, and my daughter had shown up, and he'd been married his whole entire life, and he said straight up, and I couldn't get over it. I was shocked, actually, to be quite honest with you. However, his words have been incredibly prophetic. He goes, "Let me tell you something here, Lawrence." He goes, "Don't let those fucking women kid you. They're all fucking whores." He goes, "Even that one that I'm married to right now," he goes, "you think I would own a freaking $1 million home?" He goes, "Fuck no." He goes, "I've had to buy that I've had to pay her $1 million fucking dollars to keep her happy." He goes, "That's a fucking whore." Right? And he goes, "Just stick with the 3 F's and you'll never go wrong. If it fucks, floats, or flies, rent it."
It's great.
And yeah, I'll be quite honest. I've rented it if it's gotten to the point where I'm really kind of, I need to get my end away, I'll rent it. I actually have more respect for the women that actually do that work, to be quite honest with you. I mean, that's the God's honest truth, because they're helping men. They're doing society a bloody favor, dude. And you've got to have, and they've got entrepreneurial skill. They're using the one thing that they've got, and it's the one thing that men need. And there's nothing shameful about it. You know, it's like I filled out for the Christmas party, you know, they for work, it was like, you know, it's the partner that you got, and I just put in the partner box, hooker. Oh, the reality is my boss is an ex-Navy SEAL, Vietnam vet Navy SEAL, and he thought it was great. He's like, "Hey man, where's your hooker?"
That's great, man.
But I mean, these young guys, it's just like the unicorns don't exist, dude. They
don't. That's for sure.
They don't. I mean, they all piss the same. They all shit the same. If they don't wash, they smell like a freaking toilet door on a fishing trawler. I mean, there's nothing sacred about it in any way, shape, or form. And the sooner young men can actually realize that, it's like, this is the one thing. Like, if these guys read the book Iron John, in that book, Robert Bly talks about how certain cultures would let the man have the young man have limitless amount of sexual intercourse with the woman when they're young, so that they would learn that there's nothing different between any of them.
Right.
And it's like, God damn, that's brilliant. You know, and that's the one thing that you learn is like, there's nothing different amongst any of them. The thing that's incredible is that it's stunning. Once they click into that feminine consciousness, that combined feminine consciousness, they all pretty much end up becoming the same. They genuinely do. The male side of the spectrum is incredible. We're the creators, we're the designers, we're the engineers, we're the builders. What men do is absolutely fucking incredible. And how men have built this world has been amazing, from electricity to flight to the internal combustion engine, cars, motorcycles, homes, roads, plumbing, sewage systems, you name it. Everything, like, out of hundreds of thousands of men that have designed and engineered and built this world, they're only just now trying to get females into the engineering world. And it's like, it's not going to work because women don't have that logic. It's the logic. It's the male simplicity. We are so simple. And a good woman, a decent, genuinely honest, good woman will tell you as a male, it's like the one thing they love about men more than anything is our simplicity. They admire that. They admire how we can just get up and go and do something without having 10,000 other things running through our minds. They admire how we have done what we've been able to do for them. We're not doing that shit for us. We've built this world so women can enjoy it, so they can have the children, so we can keep the populations going. We've done that stuff for them. The majority of us would just be happy in a little cave, in a simple little house. Like, I live in a simple little house. I'm fine, you know? But yet I know women down the road that live in an 8-bedroom house. Why do you need an 8-bedroom house when you got 2 kids and you're divorced? Well, I just like the house. You're fucking nuts. You know, they don't have that simplicity to them. There is always an underlying complication. And like I said, any decent woman that's worth her salt will tell you that they admire male simplicity, because it's, when you look at anything that's been built and engineered in this world, as magnificent and as beautiful as what it is, there's a simplicity to it, and that works. And as we lose that more and more and more, the more things are going to keep on going backwards. That's why I said, if these young guys can go out there and get some sort of job, learn some sort of skill set, do something that makes them useful first and foremost, beyond anything, it makes them useful for themselves, to themselves. And that, if you can't be useful as a man to yourself, then you're not any good to anybody. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, plain and simple. I might sound brutal, but that's the God's honest truth.
That's a white pill. That's not a black pill.
Yeah,
Hey, listen, I won't keep you any longer. Let's keep in touch.
definitely, man.
I had a lot of fun talking with you, and
Like I
you
said,
enjoy the rest of your evening, man. And I'll be sure to upload this. I'll send you the audio copy, and like I said, I'll shoot you a message once we're done with this. All right?
yeah, and what I'll do is I'll just you can run this on your deal. This is for you, dude.
Oh, 100%, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'll send you, like I said, I'll send you a message. I'll shoot some ideas back and forth, and we'll get together maybe in the next month or so. All right.
Definitely, Nick. Thank you.
Hey, take care. Thank you so much. God bless. Ciao, man. Bye-bye.